Started with a text. Short. Cold. Perfectly timed. Thursday, 4:03 p.m. Family meeting tonight. 8 p.m. Everyone must come. This is urgent. Dad. I stared at the glowing screen, a bitter smile tugging at my lips. Urgent. What an interesting word, especially coming from them. It had been 14 months since my wedding. 14 months since the invitations went out, and since my phone buzzed with polite rejections. 14 months since every single member of my family decided I wasn't worth showing up for. Rachel, my sister, had texted. Sorry, can't make it. Backyard weddings aren't really our thing. Marcus, my brother, had been even blunter. Not worth the drive for such a basic ceremony. Mom had sent an email, short, sweet, and cruel in that perfectly polished way she'd mastered. A casual outdoor wedding doesn't reflect our family's standards. I hope you understand. And my father? He didn't respond at all. That day, under the warm sunset glow, I said, I do, in front of 50 guests, friends, colleagues, neighbors, people who chose to be there. We stood beneath white roses and golden string lights draped between old oak trees. It wasn't grand, but it was beautiful. It was mine. And not a single blood relative witnessed it. Now, 14 months later, suddenly there was something urgent. And I already knew why. That morning, the Lifestyle Channel had aired an episode of Most Spectacular Estates. And guess whose home had opened the show? Mine. They showed everything, every restored room, every hand-carved doorframe, every sunlit corner of my 12-acre lakefront estate. They revealed its $5.5 million value, played footage from my wedding in the gardens, and even interviewed me about how I'd bought the property as a distress sale for $1.8 million just 3 years earlier. The segment went viral. By noon, I'd gotten more messages than I had in 3 years. Old friends, distant cousins, even ex-classmates suddenly so proud of me. And of course my family. So I replied simply, I'll be there. At 7:58 p.m., I turned into my parents' driveway, headlights cutting across their perfect hedges. The garage looked like a luxury car dealership. Rachel's Mercedes, Marcus's BMW, even Aunt Linda's Lexus. Funny how urgent family meetings always drew a full house when money was involved. I stepped out, heels clicking sharply against the stone path, a leather briefcase in hand. Mom opened the door before I could knock. Her voice was soft, sugared, and guilty. Victoria, you're here. Everyone's waiting. The living room was already packed. Mom, Dad, Rachel and her husband, Brad, Marcus and his fiancée, Jennifer, Aunt Linda, Uncle George, Cousin Stephanie, all seated neatly in a semicircle, like a tribunal. Aunt Linda's smile was wide and brittle. There she is. Our TV star. That estate of yours is just breathtaking, dear. I didn't smile. That's interesting, I said softly. Last year, you told me I'd wasted my savings on a crumbling house in the middle of nowhere. Her grin froze. Dad's voice cut through the air like a blade. Sit down, Victoria. We need to talk. I'll stand, I replied, setting my briefcase on the coffee table. Your text said this was urgent. Let's hear it. Marcus leaned forward, all fake charm and polished teeth. We saw the show. The place looks incredible. Thank you, I said flatly. Dad cleared his throat. $5 million, he repeated slowly. That's quite an investment for someone who was supposedly living beyond her means. The words hit me with déjà vu. It was the same tone he'd used 2 months before my wedding, when he lectured me about financial irresponsibility. Mom's voice softened, dripping with concern. Honey, we just want to be sure you're not in over your head. Surely you took out a massive mortgage. That kind of property could crush anyone your age. I raised an eyebrow. Why would you assume I have debt? Uncle George snorted. Because nobody in their 20s owns an estate like that outright. You must be leveraged to the hilt. That's why you had that little wedding, isn't it? Tight budget. I almost laughed. Is that what you think? Rachel's tone turned falsely sympathetic. We're not judging, Vic. We just want to help. Brad thinks you should sell before the market turns. Brad nodded quickly. I've got a great agent. We could list next week. I raised a hand, cutting him off. Then slowly I opened my briefcase. The sound of the metal clasp echoed through the silent room. Before we continue, I said calmly, let me ask something simple. I looked around the room, at every familiar face that suddenly looked so foreign. Why didn't any of you come to my wedding? Silence. No one moved. No one met my eyes. I sent invitations 6 months in advance, I continued quietly. I called each of you personally. Every single one of you made an excuse. Every one of you decided my wedding wasn't worth your time. That's not fair, Rachel blurted, her tone sharp. We only said it wasn't special enough. You made it sound like some backyard get-together. I looked at each of them in turn, my parents, my siblings, my uncle, the people who had decided my wedding wasn't worth their time. So tell me, I asked, voice steady, what changed between then and now? Marcus shifted in his chair, avoiding my eyes. We didn't know. Didn't know what? I snapped. That the rented cottage was actually your estate, he muttered. That the so-called basic wedding took place in gardens now featured in 3 national magazines? Rachel crossed her arms. You never told us that. I invited you, I reminded her, keeping my tone calm. Over and over. Mom said she was too busy. You said it was too far. Marcus never even returned my call. Dad's jaw tightened. We're not here to discuss the past, he said stiffly. This is about your financial situation. I raised an eyebrow. My financial situation? Reaching into my briefcase, I pulled out a crisp document and laid it on the table. That's the deed. The estate's fully paid off. No mortgage. Uncle George snatched it up, scanning the page. His face paled. Free and clear? You actually own it outright. Yes, I said simply. Then I placed another paper beside it, a fresh appraisal. It's worth $6.2 million now. The show increased its value by $700,000 overnight. Dad's hand trembled. How did you afford this? I worked for it. I opened the briefcase again, sliding out a folder neatly labeled North Star Property Development. This is my company. We restore historic estates and manage luxury properties. Marcus leaned closer, reading the page. It says your company's valued at $23 million. No, wait. 24.7 this quarter? The room fell silent. My basic wedding, I continued softly, cost $180,000. The flowers alone were $15,000. Catering Michelin starred. Music. A string quartet from Carnegie Hall. Rachel's mouth fell open. But you said it was casual. Casual, I said. Meant intimate. 50 guests. No ballroom. No showing off. Just love. Mom's voice cracked. Why didn't you tell us? I did, I replied evenly. You just didn't listen. I said I was restoring a historic estate. You called it an old dump. I said I was starting a business. Dad called it playing entrepreneur. I invited you to my wedding. You said it wasn't special enough. I unlocked my phone and held it up. A photo filled the screen. Me in my Vera Wang gown. Daniel's arm around my waist, sunlight filtering through oak trees, white roses glowing in gold light. Aunt Linda gasped. That's your wedding? The basic one you all skipped, I said. I swiped again, chandeliers, a 7-tier cake, a vintage Rolls-Royce by the lake. I never hid anything. You just couldn't see past your own arrogance. Dad's tone softened. If we had known. I laughed, short, bitter, sharp. That's the problem. You would have come if you knew it was expensive enough. Not because it mattered to me. Mom looked hurt. That's not true. Oh, it's true, I said coldly. Remember Marcus's engagement party? Cheap conference room at a Hampton Inn grocery store cake? I flew in from Seattle, brought a $500 gift, and stayed till the end. Marcus flushed. That's different. How? I demanded. Because it was your engagement, and mine didn't deserve 2 hours of your time? Rachel's voice trembled. This isn't fair. For what? I asked. For skipping my wedding? For acting superior? You should feel guilty. She shook her head. We didn't know you were successful. And that, I said, my voice rising, is exactly my point. I'm your sister. You should have supported me because you love me. Not because you saw me on television. Silence. The kind that feels like glass, ready to shatter. I reached back into my briefcase. You want numbers? Fine. One by one, I laid the deeds across the table like playing cards. Riverside property, $3.8 million. Willow Creek Manor, $2.1. Hartley Building 4.2. Riverside Inn 1.9. Their eyes widened as I kept going. Garden District 6.7. Lakefront Cottages 2.3. Victorian Mansion 3.4. Uncle George whispered, trying to keep up. That's almost 29 million. I set down the last document, my portfolio summary. Total assets, 52.3 million. Net worth, 44.2. Jennifer's voice cracked. 44 million? Yes, I said simply. Personally, I'm worth about 31. Then I looked directly at my father. Not bad for someone who was just playing entrepreneur, right, Dad? He looked like I'd hit him. Oh, I added casually. Next month I'll be on the cover of Forbes. Young Entrepreneurs in Historic Preservation. I snapped the briefcase shut. So tell me, why am I here? No one spoke. You saw me on TV, I said quietly. You realized I wasn't the failure you thought I was. And now you want in. That's not true, Mom started. Don't lie, I cut her off. Dad, what's the real reason? His shoulders sagged. The business is struggling, he said finally. We need investors. When we saw the show, we thought maybe. How much? I asked flatly. Uncle George answered before he could. $500,000. For the dealership expansion. And you thought I'd just write you a check? Rachel leaned forward, desperate now. We made a mistake. We're sorry. But we're family. Family helps each other. I stared at her for a long moment. Her words sounded sincere. But sincerity after fame isn't the same as sincerity when you're invisible. Do you know what Daniel and I did on our wedding night? I asked softly. No one answered. We walked through those gardens at midnight, I said. And he held me while I cried, because my family couldn't bother to show up for the most important day of my life. The Empty Table rewritten version. Mom's eyes filled with tears. Daniel's family was there, I said quietly. All of them. 6 different states, one 87-year-old grandmother, and a walker that creaked louder than her voice. I met their eyes one by one. Because that's what family does. They show up. I picked up my briefcase. You know what else? My voice softened. Not one of them asked how much it cost. Or if the wedding was special enough. They just came. Victoria, please, Dad said, rising from his chair. The $500,000 you need, I continued. That's less than I spent on my own wedding. The wedding you skipped. Their eyes flickered with hope. I could write that check right now, I said, letting silence hang heavy in the air. Hope bloomed and I crushed it. But I won't. Mom's lip trembled. We're sorry. You're sorry now. Not when you RSVP'd no. Not when I called crying the night before. Not once in 14 months of silence. I pulled up a photo on my phone and placed it on the table. 8 empty chairs. Perfectly set plates. A card that said family. I kept those chairs ready, I whispered. Daniel wanted to take them down so I wouldn't be hurt, but I told him no. I wanted to believe you'd surprise me. Mom began to cry openly. Every guest saw that table, I said. Do you know how humiliating that was? I picked up the photo again, staring at the image that used to break my heart. By the end of the night, Daniel's family filled those chairs. They toasted to us, laughed with us, danced with us. They made me feel loved. Stephanie wiped her eyes. That's beautiful. It taught me something, I said. Family isn't blood. It's who shows up when it matters. Victoria, Dad said desperately. If you walk away, the business will collapse. Is that what you want? I stopped at the door. You know what I wanted? I turned to face him. My family at my wedding. Mom helping me pick my dress. Dad walking me down the aisle. Rachel standing by my side. Marcus giving an embarrassing toast. I shook my head. I wanted what Daniel's family gave me, without hesitation. I sighed. No, I don't want your business to fail. But I won't be your ATM. Not anymore. Not just a family member when you need money. It's not like that, Mom whispered. Really? I asked. If that documentary never aired, would we even be talking right now? Silence. Exactly. I walked out as chaos erupted behind me. In the car, my phone buzzed. Daniel. How did it go? Me. Exactly as expected. Daniel coming home. Making your favorite dinner. I love you. Me, I love you too. As I drove, messages poured in. Rachel, please reconsider. Marcus, can we talk? Mom, you're breaking my heart. Dad, money has made you cruel. I typed one final reply to Dad. No, money just made you notice me. That's not the same thing. Then I blocked them all. When I pulled into my estate, my fully paid $6.2 million estate, Daniel was waiting on the front steps, bathed in golden light. How was it? He asked. Educational, I said with a tired smile. He hugged me tightly. I'm proud of you. You finally know your worth. Inside smelled like home. Fresh flowers and something warm in the oven. Maisie bounded toward me, tail wagging. Wedding photos lined the walls. Every frame told the truth. That even without them, it had been a perfect day. Then my phone buzzed one last time. Unknown number. Victoria, this is Aunt Linda. Some of us really do want to make amends. Not for money, just because we miss you. I paused, then saved her number. Prove it, I texted back. Show up. Not for what I have, but for who I am. Sunday dinner, 6 p.m. Come alone. That Sunday, Aunt Linda showed up with flowers, a homemade pie, and a trembling smile. No requests. No strings. Just honesty. It was a start. The rest? I haven't spoken to them since. My company just wrapped a $12 million hotel renovation. Forbes ran a feature last week. Daniel and I are celebrating our second anniversary in Italy, and I haven't missed them once. Because I learned something from that empty table. The people who show up when it doesn't benefit them, those are your real family. Everyone else is just related by blood, and sometimes blood is thinner than love.